Sorry. Each one of the items I have in my memo corresponds to the agenda. So as we go through the agenda, we'll go
Okay.
through that. So
Okay, thank you. And principal support.
Yeah, I'd just like for y'all to recognize the amount of effort that our teachers and staff members are putting in. We are kind of depleted a little bit on substitute teachers lately, like a lot of schools are. And we have quite a few teachers that are stepping up and just, I like the fact that I'm being approached by them and say, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? But they're still exhausted. You know, so it's tough. And we're trying to do this as best we can and still trying to keep kids motivated to learn, which the semester's ending in a couple of weeks on the 20th, I believe, maybe 21st. So, but it's just important. I just want to remind you that communication with parents is sometimes not as easy as it could be. And we're hoping that parents are still checking like their Alma accounts or checking your kids' Google Classrooms to stay current with kids being out of school due to either COVID or a family contact. That's when it's really important if that child is able to, you know, do some work and reach out or check their classroom. We greatly appreciate that because we're sensing that kids are starting to get further and further behind with what they're doing. And they're struggling to stay on task if they've been out for any amount of time. We are working with them, but they just need to know there's more to it as well. And we do get that. This has been hard on everybody. And I'm not sure if you know, but we postponed the middle school girls basketball because of a few cases that happened on the team. I think that's going to be starting back up again on next week, I believe. But, you know, with that all being said, and all the pressures from the world and the universe and what we consider important in our lives is kind of secondary to the fact that those kids who are staying healthy are being healthy and they're coming to school and they want to be at school. So we want them there. The teachers want them there. We just need better communication with the kids and the teachers. So that's kind of where I'm at and where the school's at right now.
Thank you. And certainly the board would like to also thank the students, the staff, the teachers for both stepping up and you know, working hard, because we all know that this is not an easy time for everybody, and people are going above and beyond, and we all appreciate that. Thank you, Mark. Committee reports.
in your packet, you have a risk management committee and facilities committee meeting minutes. And the facilities committee meeting minutes that are included were also discussed at your last board meeting. So you're all set with that. Risk management is something that, you know, is fairly new, those minutes. Those were the only committees in that.
Anyone have any questions about the committee meeting minutes?
The policy committee did meet this evening, and we did get through quite a few policies that we'll be revising and moving forward. You also have some policies that you'll be doing with your second reading that will be voted in as well.
Okay, so that's next up. Policy committee. I know we've got a bunch of stuff that's currently on for second reading that's up for approval right now, right? And then we don't have anything that's on first moving to second yet.
No.
Okay. So that'll be coming in the next meeting. Jasmine, you're still doing the policy stuff, aren't you?
I am. Tammy Ham is our chair.
Tammy, do you have any, anything you want to say about the stuff that's on for tonight?
There's just one. Policy IKF. Progress towards graduation. In there, it says that, you know, you have to have 24 credits plus 40 hours of community service. However, we don't have a community service policy. There is a policy for class community service, you know, as a whole class, the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior class, but not a personal policy. We do, Sharon, who's awesome, and at the last minute, forwarded me the community service form that each student needs to fill out, I believe on a yearly basis, and they have to document their community service hours. However, the board has no policy on that. Should we have a policy if we're requiring it for graduation? I would assume we should have a clear community service policy.
I mean, that probably makes sense. That makes sense to me. What's the normal course of business with respect to ensuring students have met that requirement?
Those things typically get filtered through the guidance office. They're the ones helping to track and keeping kids on task, maybe potentially giving them suggestions as to where they could go, along with advisory teachers.
I mean, that
Yeah.
right there, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That document right there is a process.
Yep.
And so my only concern, if it would be a policy, then it would have to be very broad. Because when you work with students, all those lists of different things that are on there or ideas, there could always be something different. And so I wouldn't want to tie the hands of the administration or teachers if a child comes up with an idea, and then can that would work for that child, but it's yet not on the list, and would have to go to the board to see if we could change it. That's the only thing I would be concerned about.
And
We don't necessarily have to make a list. We could literally and almost copy the community service form.
essentially, it looks like they have to, prior to doing the project, they can get approval for it.
Correct.
And then they provide proof that they completed it afterwards, and then it gets counted towards hours. And who tracks the hours? Is the guidance office that does that?
The guidance.
It says on the community service form, Jay, that as of 2007, 2008 school year, Lin-Wood Public School Board approved a new policy that requires students to earn blah, 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 on and on. There is no policy, though. We may have approved a policy, but there was never one, there's not one to coincide with it.
What number was that? Yeah, I'm assuming that one's referring to policy IKF, where at the bottom where it says progress towards graduation, at the bottom it does say that they need 40 hours of community service.
Right. It says it on all of them, that it says, in addition to necessary credits earned, 40 hours of community service are required for all high school students prior to graduation. It says it in 1, 2, 3 places that I saw, but there's no specific. This policy says specifically, actually, there's no heading to it anymore because the heading's even crossed. Oh no, high school graduation requirements. And it's mostly course outline and awarding credits and required subject credits and whatnot. And then there's this little blurbs plus 40 hours of community service. On the community service form, it says approved a new policy that requires students to earn community service to graduate, but we don't have a policy that coincides with that. It just made sense to me that if we're going to require it and say we have a policy, then we should have that policy.
We can look into that.
Yeah, I guess I think I sort of read that, not necessarily that that's a new policy all in unto itself. It just definitely looks like it's been added to the high school graduation requirements policy. I mean, I think, are you looking for something that's more specific about the types of activities that are acceptable and the process by which the kids get approval and show proof that they've done it? I mean, I think if that's the case, then
That is not the case. I don't want to outline the activities because like Judith said, it could be anything and it could be different for each student.
but I mean the process of getting approval and conducting the work, not necessarily of limiting.
Yes, who oversees it, which we know it's typically the guidance department. Well, I mean, it just should be outlined there somewhere.
I mean, I don't have any problem with being more specific about the policy or the procedures for doing it. I guess that would be up to the policy committee to craft something that, so I guess it seems like since 2007, 2008, we really haven't had any issues with how things have been going. So I would, maybe suggest that it tracks what has been happening thus far, because it seems to be working if we're going to implement something. But I guess that would,
It was,
if you
I
guys want to
believe,
work on that in the policy committee.
okay. I will look into it. It does not affect policy IKF at all, in my opinion. It's just, I believe that we're lacking a policy is all. In other words, I think all of those second reading policies can be approved as they are.
Okay, I will accept a motion to approve policies currently slated for second reading, including FEH, GBI, IHANA, IKF, IKFR, ILBA, ILBAA, JCA, JFA, JFABD, JFABE, JICD, JJA, JJIB, JJJ, JLCJA.
So moved.
Tammy, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jasmine. Is there any further discussion on those policies? Hearing none, we will poll the board. Tammy,
Aye.
Brian? Aye. I'm an aye. Desmond?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Joe? Aye. And that motion carries, so those policies are approved. Is there anything else from the policy committee?
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff nominations, recommendations, resignations?
None.
Okay, that's good news.
Yes.
Annual meeting location on new business. So
Well, I didn't know if the board was looking at this room for your district meeting, which is what you usually do.
typically do it here.
And or are you looking at a larger area, like the gym, because of the, situation?
yeah, I mean, maybe it makes sense to provide as much space as possible so that folks can distance if they would like to. I think we need to make sure that we're requiring people to be masked when they come to the meetings and stuff. But given the status now, although I'm hopeful and it sounds like that people soon and hopefully we'll be back down to reasonable numbers. But I think at this point we should plan on having it be in the biggest space that we have.
Better ventilation down there anyway.
Is there? Yeah. Okay.
And keep in mind that you have to have a cordoned off area for people that prefer to be unmasked.
Well, our policy is that if you're in the building, you have to be masked.
It doesn't matter. New Hampshire law says in a polling place, you must provide a cordoned area for people that prefer to be unmasked.
For polling.
And New Hampshire law for polling places definitely trumps our policy.
Is that, and that includes town meeting style voting like we do
Yes.
at the election? Yeah.
Yep, I believe, and don't quote me, but we were talking about at the town level, having an area that we can have these makeshift plexiglass panels put up on a far corner of the bleachers or something when we have our town meeting the week prior. So I will ask further about that. And with no reason to reinvent the wheel, if the town's going to have it, the school can use it the following week, is
That makes
my
sense.
thought. So I will look into that a little further and get back to Judith so she'll have more of an understanding.
Thank you, Jan.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else to address with this plan or just the location?
No, I think that was it because we have to post it all of our
Okay.
warrant.
Yeah.
So will we do the voting, the ballot voting and the district meeting all at the high school?
Yeah, because if there are any votes that night, we need everything there.
Oh, right, for the bond votes and stuff. Yeah. Good call.
And
Yeah.
also a secret vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing business, LAU plan.
Yeah, the LAU plan, we are still waiting for the state. I did talk with her the other day. I will tell you, they have been very supportive in this process. One of the people who work at the state for ESOL students came to the school yesterday, and they worked with our teacher all day and assessed students for us because we didn't have somebody to assess. So they did as many as they could, and then they showed the teacher how to do it and gave her training, so one-on-one training. So now she's going to be able to do it, and they're going to be her mentor. So it was just an excellent
Oh, great.
excellent support that we got from them. Yeah, that was all I want to say about the LA plan.
Great, that sounds excellent. The state actually providing some support.
Yeah, it was good.
Uh,
Very good.
Strategic plan. I see that we got a draft copy of the strategic plan.
Yes. And I think we have everything in there that we need to clarify. We did add a few documents. And Jasmine, I don't know if you wanted to, add
I would
anything.
love to. I wasn't at, I don't think I've been involved for the past couple of sessions.
No,
was
it
just
wasn't.
at the
What we
level-
did was we took, and you may not have been here when we were doing, when we had said this, what we had done was, the admin met with Mark Dolan.
Right,
And then we went over some of the things that we needed to have in there. And then we revised it ourselves. Then we sent out the emails and messages to any of the committee members, and you guys all
Yep,
gave in. So
I
we took
remember
all
that.
that information
yep.
and put it in. And then we were looking at other SAUs in their strategic plan, and some of what they added was the amount of time in the process that was used. And I felt that that was important to add to the plan. So we did add that in as well to the plan. So I think it was very collaborative process, because remember, we had two different committees.
Two different groups, yeah.
We had a committee before COVID, and then we ended up with a different committee after COVID. So it was two different committees. So we had a large group, actually, we sent out communications to both committees when we asked for input.
Oh, good.
So
great,
we
yeah.
got, some information that way. So that would needed to be, that strategic plan would need to be, I would appreciate it if the board could vote on that, so that we have that strategic plan and then we can move forward. And that will be part of, after this evening, if the board moves forward with it this evening or at the next meeting, it doesn't make a difference, but we will then bring it forward to the staff. And then that will then become one of our documents that we send to the two communities.
Okay, as part of next, the
report.
Yep. I do like the fact that there's well-defined goals
Yep.
and sort of actionable items or action
Yes.
items that are noted in here that are, so that we can track how we're doing. I think if this is a much more specific and traceable version of a plan than what we've seen.
Accountability.
Yeah, just
It's
what
gonna
we've seen in the
be- it's
past.
gonna be clear.
I know I wasn't involved at all in the development of this. I wasn't a member of the committee, but there was a few board members that participated. Tammy, did you participate in this as well?
I did, I made it to, I think, 3 different meetings. And that was all I could make it to.
And Did you have anything you wanted to add about it, or?
No, I love it. I love it. I think it was definitely a well thought out. And I think it's a fantastic document. I think we should approve it tonight.
I mean, I read through it. I had a chance to look at it. I like what's in there, and so I don't have any problem moving it forward tonight. But given that it's sort of significant, if there's anyone that would prefer to wait and look at it, or is everyone comfortable acting on it this evening?
I haven't read it yet, but I can abstain, you guys. I'm comfortable with it, your opinions.
Okay. We are missing a board member, and if you prefer to have a chance to look at it, we certainly, I don't.
Oh,
it's not
right,
something that-
Kevin's not there. I forgot that. Maybe we should wait. That's a good point.
It was a very comprehensive process that took, because of COVID, almost a year and a half, so
Yeah.
maybe it takes some time to look at it.
I'd love to look at
Definitely
it. but-
deserves
Yeah.
your time.
And it was,
Yeah,
I mean, it was a really fascinating process. It was, lots of stakeholder input, people from the community, the teachers, board members, admin, and everybody was really thorough in our conversations. And I mean, even just this simple piece language, we debated over we really put a lot of heart and soul into this.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I think maybe that it makes sense to at least let everybody have a chance to do.
Yeah.
Because we did just recently get to digest it. And unfortunately, I think that makes it so it probably won't go out on January 26th, but we can certainly send it out as sort of
That's
a
great.
addendum, once it gets approved. So can we just put that back on as continuing business for next
Mhm.
meeting? Thank you. Next up is COVID-19. So I know there's been some developments, and we've got an updated reopening plan. And that includes the new guidance that came out this week from DHHS, right? So that significantly changed the way that we are tracking, not tracking, but dealing with exposures and contacts and things like that.
I mean, the major change was the 5 days,
Yeah.
you know, from 10 to 5.
Yeah.
And was it also, if you are contact traced, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine?
Correct.
Yeah.
There were little, and we explained that in there, we added more
Yeah.
information to clarify, because sometimes, I mean, you
It's
know, you go
hard.
here and you go there, and it's a
Yeah.
little confusing. So we did clarify, and we haven't put it up on the website yet. We'll be putting it up as soon as the board approves that.
Yeah, and I think that this is a step in the right direction. I mean, I think it's a reflection of,
It's good. I think it's good. It moves forward,
yeah,
you know?
it's certainly a reflection of where we're at with vaccinations and treatments, and as well as just sort of I think that they're seeing that the Omicron variant is not as although more transmissible maybe, or is not quite as serious. So basically, it looks like to me that it's just reflecting the new guidance. Is that,
Yeah, right.
are there any other changes beyond that, or is there?
Well, the 5 days, the other one was the what little
Testing.
Oh, right,
Oh, yeah.
the testing, the home testing.
Yes.
Yeah.
home
I
testing.
saw that was added in there.
That was in there.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's what
Yeah.
most people are
Doing now.
doing, and hopefully, you know, that it's, whether you do it at home or whether you go to the hospital, it's the same thing that they're doing, so.
That was another major
Yeah.
change.
And part of that, I guess, includes the requirement of sort of providing some documentation of the home test as well, which
Yeah.
makes sense.
Which we have written, we have a list, a
Yes,
bullet.
yeah, I saw that, that's good.
Yeah.
Mike, the only question that I had was, you know, we've changed a lot of the sort of the line items in here. And I'm wondering if it makes more sense, so that we don't necessarily have to do this again if it changes in the next month or so, to just somehow incorporate by reference the HHS recommendations for quarantine. Because basically what we've done here is just sort of spelled out, you know, the DHHS recommendations. But if we just put in there, follow DHHS recommendations for quarantine, which can be found at such and such a website, or if you have questions, call the school and we'll be able to tell you. So that if a month from now something changes, you know, it's sort of automatically adopted without any further action from the board. Because I think, I mean, at least from my perspective, we're following the recommendations. You know, that's I don't think anyone on the board is intending to add their own interpretation of these recommendations into the policy. And so it's generally speaking, just adopting whatever the recommendations are at this point. So I don't know if, I mean, if there's an easy way to do that. I think if you know, it takes out some of the more specific stuff, but maybe we can, I don't know, it just seems to me that would be the easier way to do it going forward. So maybe it makes sense to look at that. I think it makes sense to change it as soon as possible, because we need to keep up with what's going on, but so I guess I would suggest maybe approving what's here now and then look towards figuring out a way to sort of incorporate them so that so any new changes are sort of incorporated automatically. I don't know, any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I guess my only thought is if we, for our community, wanted to make a different decision.
Yeah.
That's my only thought.
Is it a motion?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, maybe it makes sense for now just to approve this one, and then if we decide that we want to make some additional changes, we can look at it, you know, we continue to look at it. But yeah, I guess I'll accept the motion to adopt the recommended changes to the reopening plan.
I will make a motion.
Thank you, Brian.
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Any further discussion on that? We'll poll the board. Tammy,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jasmine,
Aye.
Ashley,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and that passes. Thank you.
I liked where you were going with that, Jay, and I would recommend that we give the administration the authorization to change the CDC or DHHS recommended guidelines in the reopening plan only the DHHS and CDC guidelines.
That's what we do.
I guess I'm not following, but so like going forward to.
Yeah, going forward.
If there's new recommendations to just change them automatically.
Exactly, but only the CDC and DHHS guidelines. Say next week or the week after, on the Thursday after we meet next time, they change those guidelines to now you have to isolate for 7 days or whatever instead of the 5. They have to wait a whole 2 weeks for us to get in there to vote on that. And I don't think that should happen.
And then that sort of was my point. And
Right.
I think that we just incorporate them by reference. That way we don't need to make the changes necessarily. And so maybe a way to word it rather than explicitly laying out what's supposed to happen, just include by reference, you know, whatever the opening.
But you're saying, Tammy, just to give them the authorization now. which I
Yeah,
agree
right
with.
now, let's give them the authorization to change the reopening plan to reflect the updated guidelines from the CDC on whenever it changes.
So it wouldn't be like a governor's decision, but we from the get-go planned on following the CDC recommendation, so.
Right.
Flex,
Yes, recommendation.
Yeah.
like as they flex, they should have the ability to just flex with it.
Yeah.
If it's a statement that comes from local politicians or,
Like
state
Tammy.
authorities, then we have to sit down because that's not really following with DHHS anymore.
Correct.
Or the change in testing, where we changed the policy to include home tests. That should come to the board. However, if tomorrow the CDC guidelines change again, we shouldn't have to wait 2 weeks and vote on it to change our documents. We should give the administration the authority to change that document and repost it online for all parents to see as soon as it happens. I mean, when did the 5-day thing come up? That was like 2 weeks ago.
It was last week. Yeah, I mean, so the thing is that the state's not meeting all that often to talk about this stuff. So it's not going to happen terribly often. I mean, they're basically reviewing the stuff and making recommendations like monthly or bi-weekly. So it's not all that often, but I mean, I definitely think that we should be keeping up with it. And if, the other flip side of that is if something changes and we need to, they need to change back to 10, we need to be
Right.
following that also.
So I would like to make a motion to authorize the administration to change the reopening plan to reflect current CDC and DHHS guidelines.
With respect to quarantine and isolation and.
Yes.
and-
Thank you.
A second on that?
Second.
Brian, I think first, or motion by Tammy, second by Brian. Any further discussion on that? We'll pull the board. Tammy?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jasmine? Ashley? And Joe? Okay. And that motion carries. So that empowers the administration to, be a little bit more nimble when adopting the recommendations.
I mean, if they have any questions, I'll call you anyway.
Okay.
so.
Thank you. All right, and so that takes care of that. ESSER funds, is there any update on that stuff?
But just on, with Esther and the reopening plan, there is something that every 6 months, I think, we have to just report to the state for any updates.
Okay.
They sent out a template, whatever, but that just take that. But there's nothing else right now with Esther.
2022, 2023 budget.
Go, Deb.
Oh.
Go, Deb.
Yeah, it's your turn.
She's excited.
The information is in your blue packet, plus we emailed it out. What I did is I drafted up the warrant articles, and they're very much in draft form, as it says on there, based on last week's budget work session. So we can go through the warrant articles. I also, yes, we can go through all these documents. As we're going through the warrant articles, we can refer to the other documents. I gave you the summary pages of the budgets. We can refer to some of the numbers, the tax rate impact, and then when we get into the other warrant articles, as far as the trust funds, we can look at that. We do, as far as the timelines go, you guys can vote on the budget and the warrant articles either tonight, you can do some tonight, you can do some at the next board meeting. And then February 9th is the budget hearing. And then at the conclusion of the budget hearing, you will vote one more time on the warrant articles. So we can start with, I mean, the first four articles are normal articles that we normally have in there. Fourth article just really is a notice of those salaries that are in the budget, but this district has always had that warrant article. But the money for those are in Article 5, which is the budget. And as we discussed last week, so we went through all the changes last week. So we came to a final budget, and again, this is the same sheet I gave you last week. And I know, Jay, you weren't there last week, but I gave, last week we had a summary of all the changes to get to the new bottom line.
For her, Jay and Jasmine.
Yeah, for Jay and Jasmine, yeah. The stuff that we handed out last week that we discussed, all the changes from the budget work sessions and what the budget looks like now. So the 2-page summary of the budget when we're looking at the warrant article. So the warrant article, the budget warrant article, as I talked last week, includes your general fund operating budget, plus it includes those special revenue funds, which is food service and grant funds. We put all those in that one warrant article. The food service and grant funds are offset by revenue, so it really doesn't have impact on your tax rate. But we have to notice all those, or gross appropriate all those costs. So when we're looking at that warrant article 5, it's $8,654,270, which includes your general fund of $280,677, and then added in your food service and your grant funds, comes to that higher number. And that represents a 1.2% increase in your general fund before debt, or $95,000 increase, and then a 1.7% after debt in your general fund. So that's just a summary of everything we had talked about. So Article 5 is your budget. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I was looking at the revised, the sheet.
Mhm.
It shows actually a decrease in the total district budget from last year.
That was before the, you mean the 8,654,270?
Yeah,
That line, because that doesn't include like any capital projects, which are usually in with warrant articles.
right. So basically the issue, the one where we're looking at here, total budget, including warrant articles. Those ones are incorrect because it's not the correct amount of.
Yeah, so I mean, again, when we're looking at that first article, we're looking at our,
I think that's the accurate one. Or,
the one I gave tonight.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is the one that we got in the email tonight.
Yeah,
Okay, this is the one I saw, and I guess I was.
Yeah.
So.
the warrant articles, just because once a warrant article is accepted or voted on in the prior year, it gets rolled into your budget normally. So it kind of, when you're looking below the general fund, you might have some numbers, a plus or minus number. But I think that, see the big 154,000 negative, I think that's what's throwing off in the capital account.
Special funds.
Yeah. Because last year we had a bond. So it doesn't end up in that, it ends up in principal and interest. So what you really want to look at, Jay, is your budget, your general fund budget.
So the general fund budget being what number is the,
The general fund budget is 8,208,600
okay, that,
to 677.
okay,
But then we still have to gross appropriate our food
Right,
service
right,
and
right,
our grant funds, which
Yeah,
is at 373,000. Our capital projects are in our warrant articles.
Yeah.
For the budget year.
so the 1.7 comes from the general fund budget.
Yes,
line item.
yes, that's a number, that's the line you want to really focus on when you're talking about the changes.
Gotcha, okay. And what are the warrant articles? Oh, we're gonna go through the warrant articles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first warrant article is your budget, or Article 5 is your budget. The next article, Article 6, that is the support staff collective bargaining agreement. Again, those details we gave last week, and we've given those prior to that last week. We noticed the 2 years because it's a 2-year agreement. If it was a 3-year agreement, we'd notice 3 years, but the money that's raised is the first year, the 30,176. So that's a separate warrant article. And Article 7 is there if something happens and Article 6 gets defeated, so we don't have to have so we can have a meeting. We don't have to petition the state or anything to have a special meeting. It's just common practice. Article 8 is the flooring that we discussed. We gave more details last week in the budget packet that includes the high school office, the guidance office, the special ed offices and classrooms, and then the humanities wing at the high school, which is where.
And Margaret is currently
Yeah.
Mapping out
What's
the
left.
sections of what has been done, what is proposed to be done, and what, is going to be left over.
So
So we
we-
have a colored chart for that.
So this does not finish off everything, but again, this is year 7.
And this is one of the things that we're potentially looking at doing a capital improvement fund or something like
Yes,
that.
yeah. Okay, the next article, Article 9, we talked about this. So we have, we're going to be applying for special education aid this year because we have a placement that qualifies for that. How special education aid works, it's a reimbursement the following year. So we've estimated based on the placement and the formula for special education aid that we're going to receive $60,000 next year. And we want to put that back into our capital reserve fund, and the only way you can get it back into the capital reserve fund is through a warrant article. And it has to be a sum certain, we discussed this last week, amount. So there really isn't a tax impact on that because the revenue is going to come in and then it's going to go into the account. Yeah.
On all the ones that are no tax impact, can you rate that in or?
I think you can. I'm going to check with the attorney. I have seen that.
Like, I think
Or,
that-
or you can put in what the tax impact
I think like,
is.
doesn't the town,
Yes.
when they read off their warrant articles, don't they read them as, to see if we appropriate this, there'll be no tax impact, or the tax impact will be this much for each town?
We do in Lincoln because there was a petition warrant article a few years ago that mandates us to do that. So
I just think with some
we
of the
certainly
changes
can.
that we had talked about last week, like especially the one coming up with
Yeah.
the 180.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to just be able to say that this, like to let people know that all this $250,000 isn't really part of that.
Yeah,
If you do one, you have to do them all. You can't just do this one and not do the rest of them.
Yeah, we
And
always have.
that Article 9 is kind of a catch-22, because if we don't, for some reason, get that special education aid, or only get 52,000 and not the complete 60, then there is a tax impact, but there may not be any tax impact. So that's kind of one of those catch-22 articles. I mean, and we could get 70,000, but we're still can only use 60 of that to put into that capital reserve. The other 10 would just stay in the general fund. So that's a weird one to put any kind of a tax impact quote on.
Yeah, we're not required to do it, but we normally talk about it anyway at the
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
So we can either leave it out and make sure we, because people usually ask anyway.
And by the time we get to the meeting, it's already over. I
Well,
guess
the
for
budget
meeting, I guess, yeah. No,
Yeah, we can explain, anything that we want to about what we expect in reimbursements and, or what the potential impact would be at that meeting. I think Brian's concern is like for all the people that vote, not everybody shows up to that meeting. And so they may not have, sort of the bigger picture.
But at the annual meeting, you usually talk, so you could say,
But isn't that happens after the voting.
well, you vote on the articles at the meeting.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, so they're not secret ballot votes.
It was last year just because of COVID.
I forgot about that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then we can make that point.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Was that a decision to not
Yeah, 'cause
write
we can
the tax impact and just explain it at district meeting instead?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
So keep going.
Okay, yes, Article 10. Tammy, you might need to step in here. Okay, so we had a lot of discussion about the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. So we looked at, and actually if you flip to the last page that I handed out tonight, the trust fund capital reserves.
Yes,
Yeah, so, yeah, it looks like this.
I think it's on the back page.
The last page.
Yeah, just look at Brian.
Okay, so what I tried to do is a recap of all the trust funds. Right now, we're looking at special ed, because so I took our estimated balance of where we're at right now, 194,000. We're estimating right now that we're probably gonna need to take $150,000 out of that fund by the end of this year to pay for that placement. And then adding in the 60,000 from warrant Article 9. There was a lot of discussion last week where we want that balance to be. And
So,
we're talking about like two.
yeah, like, I think
Placements.
what we were talking about, and Tammy can jump in as well, but we were looking at it as the money we typically put in would actually wash itself, so we need to make, in our opinion, a jump, and that's where we bumped it up to the 180. We're already expending 150, we might get 60 back, but if we put 180 in, then we're actually starting a process of getting multiple years out of this, because we know we're in it for multiple years. Versus if we just.
Or to have a cushion. If we only appropriate what we need for our one placement, we have no insurance at all if we get a second placement. And regardless of whether we have the money in there or not, we always made sure we had 100 or 150,000 just in case we had an out of district placement. Well, now we have one, so we have to spend it. We also need to make sure we have an additional 150 in case we get a second out of district placement. So this is kind of to make up the difference. It's going to be a huge appropriation this year, but hopefully we'll begin to maintain after that. And this is taking into account the 60,000 that we anticipate we'll get next year also. So,
what I think we talked about, Tammy, and you can correct me, but what it's doing is kind of protecting us for, say, even with the one person you have now, we're covered for 2.5 years. I believe is kind of ballpark, 2.5 years. However, if we did get a second placement, we're also covered to put that other placement in. If we went back with the original money, we would just start the process of chasing our tail, because we do know we have a placement currently that is going to cost us 150.
I thought we budgeted for that. We added,
We put some more money in the budget.
yeah, we added a sufficient amount of money into the budget to cover the placement that we know about.
That's
So then we have a cushion for one more placement currently. So the issue would be is if we get 2 more placements.
but do we have a cushion for, I don't think we do, because we have sub $150,000.
Well, we've added into the budget. We added $100,000 on top of some other funds that were already included. I think another 40 into the budget.
140 in the budget.
Yeah, to actually cover the placement for next year that we know about. So the one that we had to spend money out of the fund this year for is budgeted for next year. So really, if next year we get a second and a third is when we'd really be in trouble. We'd have enough for a second. We wouldn't have enough for a third necessarily.
I guess my feeling was, though, start to build that fund up more to cover.
Yeah.
So that every time we get a placement, we don't wash the whole budget. So we got one budgeted right now,
Yeah.
but if someone came in next year and we needed them, now we're back to 0. And then we either have to put it in the budget again, or we're going to be chasing our tail trying to fill this
Well, I
fund.
mean, we're gonna have to budget. We have to budget for our special ed needs. If we know that there's a placement,
Yeah.
it's gonna be in the budget, right? And that's the plan. We can't count on the funds for that. So that's why we did that this year by adding that money in. You know, my thought is, we can do this year to year because if we have a surprise one year, we budget for that surprise the next year if we know it's
Yeah.
coming back. The second year, you know, that expense should be included in our budget. The issue is, do we want to have enough in that fund to deal with 2 surprises or 1 surprise? And I feel like we have infrequently enough, you know, knock on wood, have these issues come up that I don't know that it's necessary to tie up that much funds in that.
And
in
we've
that
done well
fund.
with what we've done with 150. It's been average 150 in there. And we've been able, is that right? The
And you
special
have a
education?
little bit of time, like you said. I mean, if another placement comes in, you do have like this year,
Yeah.
we didn't have that placement in our budget. We
Right.
had the fund, but now we have the time to put the money in the budget.
Right.
To keep, to
Right.
add a little bit more money
We-
into the fund. but-
yeah.
So you don't have to have that money right
Right.
that second.
And my thought is we just need to be able to cover ourselves
Yeah.
for a surprise that happens in the budget year.
Right.
Because the next year, we're gonna be going to the taxpayers and saying, this is just an expense that we're
Right.
covering
So
now.
we have to
And
pay.
so that's part of the budget as opposed to, trying to keep refilling this fund. It doesn't need to be able to cover everything. It just needs to be able to cover like a surprise. And I think that the money that we have been dealing with has been sufficient. I mean, that's my thought. That's the other thing too, is that's just a lot of money.
I agree.
It's a lot of money to put in there.
Might be, do it over a couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And if we want to build it up,
Right.
maybe not do it all at once, maybe instead of 60,000, put in 100,000 and get that to a level where maybe we could do 1.5 or 2 of these placements that come up, as a sort of unexpected scenario, as opposed to trying to go for it all at once. I just see it's a lot of money. That's all.
Can I ask, Deb, we have 194,000, you said, in that capital reserve now. In the special ed trust, 194, is that correct?
Yeah.
How much of that do you anticipate spending this coming school year?
150, maybe by the end of the year to cover the placement that we don't have in our budget.
So what
For
is it gonna
this
take-
year's placement. So we're gonna bring that down to 44,000.
Well, I guess that's the question. What do we need to add back to this fund to get it to where it safely can cover another unexpected placement?
I think
Another
With that,
40,000.
60,000.
the minimum, I think, is gonna be right around 60 in addition to the 60 of the 60 you'd be getting from the,
So we're gonna get 60 back from reimbursement.
And we'll have
And then
about
we're
40.
gonna, we add, what do we normally add to the special ed trust?
10.
10, so, okay, we're gonna have to do more than that, but,
Yeah, so that's what they're trying to do.
That was the discussion. that's where
so
the-
you think that, I don't, I guess the question is, do we need to go to 284? Is something
No.
200 is
I don't
sufficient?
think
She
we, I don't
suggested
think we need
200.
that.
Okay, so
I'd
what
say
is,
about 200.
what would that make the appropriation then, like 100 as
Yeah,
opposed to 180?
100, yeah.
I would be
And that
comfortable with that.
That basically just sort of gets us back to where we were.
Yes.
Okay.
And they discussed also, not taking, because the 10,000 we've been taking out of unassigned fund balance, but we want to
Yeah.
make sure this money gets in, so put in whatever we think we need.
Sure.
Okay, are you just concerned that we might not have enough in the other fund balance?
Yeah, not 100,000,
Yeah.
plus to fund the other trust funds too.
Isn't it, I thought that that thing that you gave us last week had a pretty significant.
That was from last year,
expectation.
and yeah, I mean, the last 2 years, we've had a lot of money.
But that
Yeah.
was different because.
No,
of
we
COVID.
got the halfway point
Yeah,
thing last week, and it said that, this is what we've spent so far, and this is what we expect to have at the end of the year.
yeah, but I said I didn't have all the
Okay.
encumbrances in there.
Yeah. So it's
And
not-
there are a lot of yearly expenses that come out at the end of your year. That, in May, there'll be a lot of yearly expenses that'll have to be paid prior to the end of the budget cycle. So I think it's important that even if we lower this from 180 to 100,000, which I would be fine with, that I still think that it needs to be raised and appropriated through taxation and not come out of unexpended fund balance, just to make sure that we have it.
So if we did it out of unexpended fund balance, it would be $200,000 total, right? Of unexpended fund balance.
Or, yes, roughly.
Okay, but that seems, I mean, when was the last time we gave back to the towns less than that? Even after taking out the 100,000. that we
Yeah, I
normally
mean,
take out.
in other years before COVID, it would be close. I mean, it wouldn't leave a whole lot left. But
Yeah, I mean, are we,
I think though, we want to make sure this gets in there.
I think that we should get it back to a safe level. I think we need to do that. Because we need to have that cushion in case something that happens again, but I don't know if we need to go overboard. So I guess my suggestion, and I'll make my own
comfortable with the
motion to
100.
change that to 100.
Well, again, I think because you have the 140 in the budget
Right,
too.
right.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
That takes care of next year.
But I'm
Right.
But we should be able to get that, we need to get back in case there's a second. We need to have that cushion for the.
I'd like to see if we did the 100, that would make me feel comfortable. And then if, like we said, that's in the budget and we don't need it. But now we're in a good spot. So then we can drop it back down to $10,000 or
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
in years going forward. This is just, I look at it as kind of a fix, and I
Yeah,
think
we need
that's
to
what we were
catch up.
trying to do.
Yeah.
So we could go back to 10 if we didn't need it, and now we're just using it, utilizing it through the budget. We just build off of it with lower denominations.
Jay, did you just make a motion to lower that to 100,000?
To change that from 180 to 100.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Any further discussion on that? Tammy, aye or nay?
Aye.
I,
I'm an aye. Jasmine?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay. There's that one. And I guess approve it for that amount. I guess if we're taking a vote on this.
yeah, I
tonight.
think he'll go back through and
Oh,
vote.
okay.
We haven't
Start
voted on
at
any
one.
of these.
Oh, all right, I guess we don't need a
Yeah.
full on motion to
I mean,
change
if
that
it
then.
gets to March and we're like, oh, well, we don't need this much, you can always lower it too at the annual meeting, but I think this
Okay.
is safe.
Okay,
Yeah.
then,
And then the other articles
Those
11 through 14 is what they discussed last week.
and they're standard, right?
And the only thing that really changes, we didn't fund the special ed capital reserve because we're already funding it up above. And putting 20,000, we kept it at 100,000, the total for the articles, but put 20,000 in the technology fund, which is normally 10. Okay. So we took the 10,000 we normally put in the capital reserve and added it into technology. And again, that was based on some of the discussions on some of the spending on this sheet. we're gonna take, we have some Wi-Fi upgrades that we're gonna use the technology fund for, also iMac replacements.
Yeah.
Is there a way to like, sorry, just to go back to that prior. Is there a way to just say, to the extent that this article can be funded through unassigned fund balances, it should be, otherwise the remainder would be raised through taxation?
I don't think so. I'll have to check.
Okay. Sort of a hybrid, you know, like,
Yeah,
we need it to be 100,000,
I don't
whether
think
whether
we can do
that
a
comes
hybrid
from.
like that. I think it would have to be two separate articles, but.
Okay, so we could do that, right? We could say 100,000 through unassigned fund balances. If there's insufficient funds, you know, wrote like, basically like a either or sort of we do with 6 and 7. Just to say, if there's insufficient funds to fully fund article, you know, 10 through unassigned fund balances, that we would make up the difference through appropriation, or that we would appropriate, it would be appropriated.
You would have to make a separate warrant article if 11, if there wasn't enough money in the unassigned fund balance, then you'd have to make, you know, Article 12 would be to see if the district will raise and appropriate through taxation that money. And then, and for each one, there'd have to be a second one. In the event that there isn't enough in the unassigned fund balance, will you then raise through taxation? So each of those would have 2 articles.
Well, I think we can do it with, just for that one.
Yeah,
That's the only one that we
I'll
like.
have to check on that, because I'm not really sure. They're
I
very
mean, if it's not
strict.
possible, it's not
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at
I
doing it
mean,
for that one, I get that.
Frankly,
but I don't know.
the flip side of that is, you know, it's neither here nor there when it comes to rate setting, right? I mean, it's either, you know, that 100,000 either comes out of unassigned fund or it goes back to the taxpayer.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
It doesn't make necessarily any difference in the long run, but, you know.
Out of the left pocket into the right one.
But I also think it's a better planning tool, to just like you said, to put
To
the money
appropriate.
in there.
Yeah.
Through taxation, because you know you have.
We need to
this
know that we
expense
have
right
it.
there.
Do you want to make a motion? Do we have to align the line? Can we motion to accept Article 1 through Article 7 since they're unchanged?
We can make a motion to accept the entire warrant with the changes outlined, the Article 10 from 180 to 100 and changing the location to the high school. And I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. I'm okay with the way things are presented.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joe. Or Brian.
It's just, Joe's just, I'm not even gonna say second.
I didn't say a word.
Gotta be.
You got talking to my good ear, I guess.
I'm brain dead, but
Um,
go ahead.
So any further discussion on that motion? And are you comfortable with that motion, Devin? Sorry.
Yeah, and we'll
Accomplishing what we need
clean
to.
these up. Again, I still have working with DRA to make sure all the language is correct and our attorney, but yes.
Then I will pull the board to approve that. Tammy?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
I am an aye. Devin?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Thank you. Were there any further budget-related?
No, I did
Issues.
just give you worksheets that I used to put the tax rate, so you can see how that's calculated.
Yep.
For each. I did for the general fund, kind of did what does $80,000 look like if we increase that? Because it's really, it's just math. You know, so we just divide the budget by the formula and then divide by the net assessed valuation in each of the towns. I mean, there is definitely the impact to the Woodstock tax rate is higher than it is to Lincoln tax rate because of the valuations in the two towns.
It kind of connects to this, but maybe I'm just overthinking, and I don't know if we need to word it. God forbid anything happened like it did last time, and remember Rob had to make, he had to do to change the date bi-weekly. Is there any, we have to have that worded ahead of time to, in case.
That was 2 years ago, I think. We did
That was, yeah, because last year we were fully remote, but 2 years ago when this kind of all happened, we kept having to have an announcement. Is that
Right.
something that needs to be just
Well, that was,
planned on?
wasn't that part of the emergency orders that the
Yeah,
governor?
he
I don't
did,
think
he did those on governor's orders. So that the governor will make those orders. It doesn't matter what we put in here or not. If the
I just wanted to
governor,
make, sure we're not putting a date out there that technically
Yeah.
we can't. hit.
I don't know that we
We
can
would just.
count
recess.
on any of that, given this, yeah.
we have to put a date certain on it,
Yeah.
on the warrant.
Um,
Deb, will you have the per thousand tax impact exact figures for each article for us for the budget hearing?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you
So
so
did you get
much.
did you get the sheet?
Yes, I see it.
Let's update those. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure what the new valuation should be, $200,000 house or $500,000 house.
Gosh, I think they are still doing it per thousand, but you're right. It could go.
this is caught up with the sale prices at this point.
Yeah, that's thankfully.
Thankfully, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, is that it for that business item?
Just, yeah, just the elementary HVAC.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to make sure we were more moving on to that before we were done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Deb. And now elementary HVAC contract.
Right, now that just came back today, right, with the signature?
Well, we sent it to the contractor, just because we know they needed to, our attorney went through it all. We know they need to start ordering stuff. The only thing we said is we hadn't made a final decision on the alternate, the ad alternate, because we were waiting for more
All right.
information.
Oh, yeah,
So we just got Wade Fillion's response.
I saw that, and he doesn't seem real stoked on it, to be honest with you. I did read up a little bit on these units because I was curious about, what they were all about, and I had certainly been following these sort of developments in this type of technology because of this project, and a lot of them seem to be snake oil. And so, but this does have a bit more scientific backing and a little bit more legitimacy, I guess, from what I'm reading, the DHP technology. The one question that I had was, there's a couple of different versions of it, and some of them are basically just like a device you put in the room. And I don't know if that's what he's anticipating. There's other ones that are in line in the actual system.
This is actually putting the device in the room.
Okay, so this is what we're looking at is this device in the room.
I thought it was,
Because
This
there
is what was quoted.
are a version
I
of,
thought it was the inline.
I thought Mark told me it was, because he had to be, and each one was put in the room, each room. Because in the elementary school, each unit event is a separate thing, so like.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess he's calling it in-room dis.
Yeah, it's on, in room disinfectant.
yeah, I guess that's the one of the questions is if we're just adding a device that is an aftermarket thing that we can just buy at any point, then maybe it doesn't make sense to do it. There are options for this technology though that are in line so that it's a device that actually goes into the ductwork, I think, in each room. And so I was wondering if that's what we're talking about, or if we're talking about what we see here. Is this right here is this is just like it's like an air purifier that goes in your room, and there was some studies, some peer-reviewed studies that suggested that these things were up to 99% effective in reducing or removing COVID from the air. Obviously, COVID's not the only thing that we're worried about, but there's promising results with regards to other microbes as well. So I sort of I like the idea of it. I'm just wondering if there's a way to incorporate, if we can maybe look into the ones that are sort of in line as opposed to just sort of in the room. I feel like those things would have a tendency to either grow legs or get broken or, something like that.
Okay, certainly awesome.
But they're designed for a closed space.
Yeah,
And it says close your windows and your outside doors. Every one of those unit vents blasts in fresh air.
Yeah.
And there's exhaust in each room, so
Yeah.
you're turning the air over in those rooms all the time. So this thing isn't really sitting there purifying like it's designed.
Yeah.
quote.
Yeah.
Will it, in addition to help things? Probably.
Yeah. It's not gonna be as effective as it's supposed to be. You think?
No, it really isn't designed for that.
I'm also just, if we're talking about just a unit that's sitting in the room, we can wait until there's a little bit more confidence in these things.
Maybe another grant will come out.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
I mean, I guess at this point, maybe it makes sense to hold off on it. And do we need action on any of this right now? Or
No,
is-
not right now.
Wanted to make sure that we had reflected that.
That we were either not or that we were.
Yeah, because we hadn't really.
I'll
So-
make a motion to just hold off on.
To
the
hold off on the.
Yeah, I mean, I think
$50,000
we've-
additional to the system.
Oh, second.
I guess I would say, I don't know that we need to make that motion because currently we're moving forward without it, right? We would just need a new motion if we were gonna have it.
Right.
So we could just status quo, I think, right? Is that fair?
It's fine.
Yeah, it's not-
Good motion.
I make a motion to move on to the next agenda. item. Recognition of visitors. We don't have any.
I have a board action.
Oh,
I forgot.
Okay.
And you have a bus. that was
Oh,
on
right.
yeah.
I don't know if you got the copy. of
I
it.
did.
Okay.
I'll say my instinct is to wait on that. I mean, I feel like we'd be taking a path on
Yeah,
that.
and I
Yeah.
think we kind of
Put it
talked
back
about.
out there, but we.
Yeah.
But I think when we discussed doing it, my concern was getting not enough money that it's actually worth more than we see. And if we have to just give things away, then it just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, at that point, we might as well keep it because maybe at some point we'll use it. I mean, it's not
If it was run to the ground and barely moving.
Isn't this the one that we just got?
No,
Oh, it's
No.
not. Okay. It's not like it's not the one that we like got after the bus accident.
$180,000 is in me.
That's a
need of-
small bus, right?
Yeah. And it's in need of some work to get it rolling.
But the expectation was that we would be getting somewhere in the neighborhood of around $10,000.
We were anticipating that, we thought.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, I'd rather
Figured
see
someone
it.
would buy it, like,
I don't know how you do it because I guess it's an asset. You have to go through the whole process, but then maybe just wait and.
Please don't put it back out there because now John Hamm's aware of it.
Maybe we
Yeah,
can
it
have
was.
the small engines class or the welding class start
if we donate
building
it.
a camper out of it and then they can auction that off.
okay,
Something. I don't know. I feel like that we can find better.
yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Better use.
Tiny house.
Make
Make it
whatever.
a like ice cream truck for campus or
There we
something.
go.
like-
I did the math based on the GVW that I looked up online and with the current scrap prices. And if we could get it down to Steens, we could get about 2,600 for it. So
Geez, so
Just for scrap.
just scrap.
Right.
All right, well, I mean, maybe
That was
wait
my-
until the spring at
When I
least.
saw it, my feeling was I just didn't feel like that was worth.
Yeah.
Our time,
Yeah,
you know.
it's not gonna hurt us to hold on to it for a little bit longer and maybe see what we can do better than that.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
if you put it out for bid again, does it have to be a finite time or could you put it out to bid, from tomorrow until an acceptable bid is accepted received? Or do you have to do it for a finite time?
Yeah, so then, I mean, but if you don't hit that number, it's just not
Yeah, we did.
accepted. It's
We-
kind
we
of like a
didn't hit that
reserve
number.
at any other
Yeah.
auction. Or maybe we sit, discuss what we think is actually like a monetary number that, all right, we were high before, but we say, all right, we want. I'm not gonna say any numbers out loud, but XX dollars and that's our acceptable bid, just like a reserve on anything else.
The other question, I guess, is what is this thing costing us to have on our books? I mean, beyond just a small amount of depreciation,
Yeah.
but we're not putting.
Insurance, it has to be insured.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering, the insurance
that's
and,
not- And again, right now, we really couldn't drive it because it hasn't passed the inspection.
yeah.
There was work that had to get done to get it on the, the state, the annual
Yeah.
state inspection.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Deb,
maybe
can
we
you
can-
estimate the cost of insurance for a year on that?
Yeah, I'll have to go back because all of our insurance is bundled in the group.
I guess
So-
it's not much when you bundle like
No, it
the
isn't.
size that we are, it's probably.
It isn't much.
No.
I don't, and the registration, well, we don't have to pay for a governmental entity, so.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like it's costing us a whole lot to hang on to it and try again at some other time. maybe in the
It
spring.
would cost us if we tried to get it up and running, yes. But
Right, just in the spring. All right.
Right,
we can wait.
All right, is that it?
that's it.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Recognition of public and visitors. Do we have any students? We don't have staff, or is there a staff report? Okay. Community, Paul, do you have?
Yeah, a quick thing here.
Sure.
So I think we mentioned before that we were going to have a school report card. And I think we also mentioned, I hope that's going to include test scores. And I was also wondering, test scores are something that the schools gave us as an evaluation tool. So I just want to know going forward, when we evaluate this school, are we going to use those test scores and whatever else we're going to use? Because I've never gotten the clear feeling that we've been evaluating the school by test scores. I could be wrong, but maybe this report card would shed some light in that, because the other people in the, we have meetings about this in the other towns. And I think there's confusion why we're spending so much money and not necessarily getting back what we think we should be getting on test scores. Having said that, I'm looking on the state of New Hampshire website for math proficiency for high school. A lot of times we're talking about middle school, but the problem's already moved to the high school. So we've had a couple of years, at least since I've been here, to deal with the severe problem with the lack of education that has been given to an entire group of kids that's totally responsible of this school. And that's very clear because the kids after them and before them performed significantly better. So these kids who are being left behind scored, the ones that weren't left behind in 1919 scored 75% proficiency in math, which is pretty good. Could be better. And they scored 35% in 2021. So we went from 75% proficiency to 35% proficiency. That's 40%. That's huge. That's massive. You know what's worse? The science score. They went from 70% to 25%. That's 50. 50. That's huge. That's a massive. And I'm just confused with what we've been doing to help these kids, because we've known about this problem. Absolutely. That's all I got.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else here, so is there any issues for non-public today? I will accept the motion to adjourn.
We have to, because you email.
I don't think so. I don't think it's anything the board needs to address. That's all.
Did that get sent out?
But
What?
The email?
It went to everybody. If you didn't get it,
Yeah, I
I'll show
don't
you
think it
after,
has
because it was
anything
clearly
to do with
intended to go to you, but I don't think it's anything the board needs to address.
Hey,
Anyone
Joe,
wanna
I'm
make a
looking at it. It's, your name is misspelled. That's why you didn't get it. It's an email address.
Yeah, I'll show Joe after, so he can see it.
I'm just curious, is the administration addressing this person's questions, needs, whatever it is, issues?
Tammy's asking if
Yeah,
admin is aware. and
You guys are
addressing-
aware and are addressing whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And if
Perfect.
somebody spell my name right, so I get the email.
I'll do it, Joe. I'll do it.
JBOSSE.
BOSSIE.
Aye.
Oh.
Boozy. Go ahead and forward that to him while you're on there.
Even Ryan doesn't know what I'm saying.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
One second.
Thank you, Joe. Any, Tammy?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jasmine.
Jasmine, I mean.
Joe? Thank you. And the meeting is adjourned.